Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. This is Rabbi Meir Assi, Chabad of the West Side. As one of the staples of the Chabad of the West Side Shabbos experience is the Devar Torah Shabbos morning, and that we will, to do in person, we will be waiting for. In the interim, we will do our best to replicate that experience before Shabbos, and in the manner that we do it at Chabad, where the rabbis rotate from week to week. So each successive week, one of the rabbis will be saying the Devar Torah. This week, I will be giving the Erev Shabbos Devar Torah for the Torah portion of Tazria-Metzora. Tazria-Metzora is a double Torah portion, and the topic matter, the majority of the topic matter in this is about the state of tsaras. Tsaras is an affliction. It is sometimes translated as leprosy, perhaps not precisely, but it is in human beings, it appears as a skin affliction. In clothing, it is a discoloration of the clothing, and likewise, it can also appear as a discoloration in a home, and the walls of a home. The relevancy of these parshas is obvious to our current times. The parshas talk about disease, about affliction, which unfortunately that we are going through in our own way now. And specifically, the Torah portion discusses about quarantine, that which the Metzora, that which the person of the affliction had to experience, and to a great extent, quarantine is what we are experiencing, each and every one of us, at this juncture in time. The relevancy is there. The question, and that which is most important to us, is what is the message? What is the teaching? Everything in the Torah is a hara. It is a lesson for us how to live our lives, how to better live our lives. And when we are sort of bookend between the experience of disease and quarantine on one hand, and the Torah portion, which addresses disease and quarantine on the other hand, and we find ourselves in the middle, obviously it is that we should take a lesson how to better live our lives, to improve our lives, to improve the world around us. The Torah portion, even though the bulk does talk about the tsaras, this state of affliction, it actually begins on the most upbeat note. It begins with conception and birth. Isha ki sasriya, the very Torah portion is called sasriya, to conceive. After the conception comes birth, a boy or a girl, and of course, which is the greatest and the most intense blessing, imaginable, the gift of having children. And the Rebbe notes the incongruency between such a wonderful event of new life, of birth, and of this happiness, and then going immediately into a discussion of suffering, of affliction, alienation, quarantine. How do these two things come together? And the Rebbe points out that it is our fundamental belief, not only that Hashem rewards and he punishes, but it is basic to our belief as Jews that punishment is never just never just punitive, but in actuality, when Hashem punishes, it is always rehabilitative. And quite often, with many punishments and in many things in life, we don't see that. We don't see how it benefits us. We don't see how it rehabilitates us. But when it comes to the Metzora, when it comes to this person who is afflicted and who will be sent out of the camp, the Rambam will show to us that this is not something which is punitively being exercised by Hashem against us, but that in actuality, this is the chaste Hashem, it is the kindness of Hashem who is providing us with a way to repair ourselves and a way to heal our own wounds, self-inflicted wounds in this case. Because the Rambam points out, and drawing on the midrashic sources and drawing on stories from the Chumash, that leprosy, the tsaras, was something which was a consequence of a person speaking lashon hara, disparagingly, insultingly of another, and that the societal position of the person, where they meet other people, and was misused. That instead of using conversation, instead of speaking of the praise of others and helping and speaking words of Torah, this person used his social interactions to put down others, to disparage, to speak ill, and to cause harm with his speech. It is talking about a person who has broken the social compact which keeps the society together, and has decided to accentuate just their own and to promote their own position. Because when a person speaks ill of another, why is it that they are doing this? Because they are trying to inflate themselves. This is, Rashi points that out specifically, that that's part of the carbon, that part of the sacrifice that the Metzora will bring in order to correct himself was the Eitzeres, because in actuality, even though immediately the affliction was was caused by lashon hara, but the root of the symptom was their own sense of being inflated, their ego, and because of their ego, they sought to put other people down by speaking ill and harmfully of them. So, one who has misused their place in society, the Rambam says that Hashem, in his great kindness, gave them the opportunity to correct their ways, to remove them from the problem, to remove them from society, and to allow them to contemplate, why is Hashem expelling them from the camp? Why are they no longer able to be part of the community during this time? Because they must reflect and they must repair themselves, they must change their ways. That to use that opportunity and that gift of society which Hashem has given to us, not to disparage and to hurt others and to cause injury, but to benefit their friends and their community and the world at large. They must use this time to rethink, how are they interacting with others? How are they speaking about others? How are they using these gifts which Hashem has given them? And then, when this process is completed, they will see that the time of quarantine for them was actually not punitive, it was restorative. It was restorative to the extent that they can actually feel as if they are a new person. And this ties into the Tazria, the new birth. Because the goal of their quarantine, the goal of their being sent away, is to return as a new person, a person who is not just going to use society for their own purposes, but who is ready to contribute to society. And so we see that the quarantine, which the Metzora is going through, is not for the purposes of preventing contagion to others around him. We see this explicitly from certain laws about the Metzora, that, for example, if the tsaras develops during a holiday, that we postpone the declaration of his status and sending him away. We postpone it till after the holiday so that everyone can enjoy the holiday. If the Torah was driven by concerns of contagion, then there would be no difference between holiday time and not holiday time. Obviously, That is not the issue at hand. The quarantine is not to prevent contagion. The quarantine is the therapy itself. It is the time when they can reflect and when they can find a way to mend and to heal themselves by improving their social interactions. And so for ourselves, as we experience this time of quarantine, and even though it certainly appears on the surface that it is punishing to us, it is difficult, it is difficult for us, and that there is a degree of suffering and hardship which is involved for us, for our families, for our children, and of course the hardship, the horrific pain of those who are very ill and those who are lost to this disease. But we are reminded by the Parsha that which a Jew experiences, it is ultimately b'chaste Hashem, it is ultimately Hashem's kindness to us. Sometimes it is what we can appreciate, and there are those things that, of course, we cannot grasp and we cannot comprehend. But for those of us who our experience of this malady, of this disease, has been basically to suffer through quarantine, we must take a lesson from the Parsha that this state of quarantine must be therapeutic to us. It must be healing. It must be healing to us. And as social beings, as the Rambam points out, that a human being is a social being, and what is essential in this relationship that we have with others is that it is one which is a symbiotic relationship, that we are not just exclusively exploiting and taking from others. We are not using our social ties for self-promotion and self-validation and to build our own ego. Just as we are not just exclusively giving to others, because that would be, to a certain extent, self-exploitation. If in every interaction we gained nothing ourselves, then that would not be the purpose of society, and that is also not healthy. The purpose of our societal interactions is that they must be symbiotic, and that every time that we encounter another person, that we meet another person, we must know that in that exchange there should be something that we get and something that we give. And this mutuality of the experience is the reason why Hashem made us into social beings. That together we can grow, and together we can grow, and together we can thrive. And so we have to use this time when, thank God, even as we are alone in our homes, we also have the ability to interact, to reach out to others by phone, by video, whatever the means may be. That first and foremost, this time of social distancing should be a time of social repair. It should be a time that each one of us thinks, how can we be more helpful to the other? How can we build society in a way in which everyone, it is mutually beneficial? And this is what the time must be dedicated to building our relationships, to expanding our relationships, to beginning to think of ourselves not just individualistically and as a person who just needs to gain from others, but to begin to start, as the Tanya talks about, to have a collective identity, that we are not just a being unto ourselves, we are part of a community, we are part of the body of Israel, and that our health and that our welfare is always intertwined and works hand in hand with the welfare of the entirety of the community and society. We have been reminded, very shockingly, that There is so much we're not in control of. That here in an age of modernity, when we thought that we are masters of the universe, masters of nature, masters of technology, masters of our own destiny, we have been reminded that a very small microbe has unseated that mastery. And so there's so much which we are not in control of, but we are always in control of how we act, of how we speak, and of how we conduct ourselves. Our behavior is always our own. Hakol bidei shemayim, everything is in the hands of heaven. How poignantly we have been reminded of that. But chutz miyira shemayim, our fear of heaven, our moral life, our ethical life, this, we are the masters of our own destiny. And so as we experience our contingency on Hashem's will, as we are we simultaneously, we must affirm that which we, our own mastery, the mastery over ourself and over our behavior. And to use this time as productively to build, not to distance socially, but to build our social bonds, to build our relationships, to benefit others, and thereby we will also be benefiting ourselves. And really to live messianically, because this is the messianic hope that, and the aspiration, that it will come a time where competition, where conflict, where divisiveness, where all of those things will collapse, and we will no longer work one against the other, but we will work with a common cause, and we will live with a common cause to serve Hashem. We can get a head start right now, and through that, our actions, as we redeem ourselves and we redeem our own behavior, will bring to the redemption of the entire world through the coming of Mashiach. Wishing everyone a very good Shabbos, a very healthy Shabbos, and as we enter into the month of Iyar, which has the Rosh Hashanah, the acronym, the four letters are Aleph, Yud, Yud, Resh, that stands for the verse, Ani Hashem Rafecha, I am the Lord who will heal you. May Hashem heal each and every one who is in need of a refuah shlema, and may He give us the strength to heal ourselves and to very speedily experience the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu.